Hey, Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
Well, it depends on who you ask. There are different ways you could approach that. From a professional standpoint, I'm a highway engineer, or the guy that you when I bring up, hey, I design highways for a living, and then the next thing you know, oh, I got this project right down the street from me. The road's been torn up for so many months, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Hey, I wasn't involved with that project directly. So it's kind of a matter of like, if you talk from a professional standpoint, it'd be, yeah, I'm a roadway engineer, been doing that for 14 years. If you ask me, if someone were to ask me from a uh, activity standpoint, they might peg me as someone that is crazy about fitness and CrossFit and all that, because I'm big into doing that pretty much on like a daily basis, 5 to 6 times a week.
Mhm.
Or if you catch me at a brewery, I am a big brewery craft beer aficionado.
Nice.
And I try to go to every craft brewery that is within driving distance.
Mhm.
So there are different ways that you can approach it, either from a professional standpoint. I'm Bryan Sartin, professional engineer, or
Mhm.
I am B Sizzle to my closest friends.
I like
So,
it. And tell me a little bit, where'd you grow up?
so it's a little bit of a long story there. So, uh, I early life, I grew up in North Charleston, South Carolina. I did not come from one of the greatest of backgrounds, I would say. Uh, my mother wasn't really involved with my life in my early life very much. She was kind of just out doing her own thing, was in and out of jail. Kind of a little dark on that perspective, but yeah. So really, she wasn't involved too much with my life until about 1998. At early time, I was living with my great grandfather in North Charleston. And then when she came back into my life around 1998, 1999, she married a guy, and we ended up moving to Michigan briefly from 2000, 2001, around
Mhm.
Kalamazoo. And that was a big culture shock, going from living in the Southeast near the beach to living in the snow and all that. So
Yeah.
just it was a pretty unstable time. Um, and a lot of the moves were related to just not being able to hold it down a job, or like, I know someone that
Mhm.
has a job here. And really, it was very tumultuous, because we went from Michigan, then we lived in a couple of different places in Mississippi
Mhm.
from 2001 to 2004, and then jumped back to 2004. We're in South Carolina again.
Gotcha.
And at that point, stepfather was out of the picture. And then my mother went down a really dark route with drugs and that kind of thing. And in 2005, she just straight up abandoned myself and my sister. I come to then live with my grandparents in Georgia.
Mhm.
So basically, I demark my life with 2 points. Anything prior to May 9th of 2005, those were
Mhm.
kind of the dark ages. And anything past May 9th of 2005, that has really been my second life.
Wow.
So the life that everyone associates with me with is that post May 9th, 2005 life. So from that point, I lived in Loganville, Georgia, and that is where I went to high school my junior and senior year. I met my girlfriend there, who is now my wife, Melissa, and we've been together since 2006. So
Wow.
really, it really has been like a turning point for me, is when I was giving that opportunity to succeed. And I eternally am grateful to my grandparents for allowing me to have the opportunity to um, graduate high school, go to college, and have a successful career. Because prior to that, I probably would not have had that opportunity, because just the situation I was in with my mother just really would not have afforded me that opportunity. So
Gotcha.
um, So tying in kind of with my career,
Mhm.
my grandfather, he worked for a geotechnical engineering company. And for those that are listening to the podcast that aren't familiar with what that is, that's basically soil engineering. So
Mhm.
whenever you build any type of structure or road, you have to make sure that the soils are conducive to putting that type of structure down. So I got a job when I was 16 years old, part time while in high school and college, like testing the quality of soils and concrete and all those types of materials to make sure they were suitable for construction.
Oh, nice.
So then that kind of got me on the track. Well, hey, I might be able to do the civil engineering thing. I was always an A student in high school,
Mhm.
so why don't I try out civil engineering? And so I applied to a couple schools and Southern Polytechnic State, which many now know as Kennesaw State University.
Yeah.
That's where I ended up in 2007. So from there, I started my time there studying, and that's really where I met a lot of my friends and professional connections that I still have to this day. That's where I met you
Yeah.
about 16 years ago, I believe. I believe it was my
Yeah.
sophomore year. I believe you were a freshman,
Mhm.
and uh, it was you, I, and David that were in a few classes together at that time.
Mhm.
So um, and I look back at those times in college as some of like the greater times of my life. I was able to kind of get out of my shell, because the one thing I will say prior to 2005 was, with all that moving, I wasn't able to make friends really well. It was
Mhm.
just hard because, like, I'm looking in the back of my mind, it's like, why even bother? I'm just going to
Right.
be gone in a year from now and not even like know you. Um,
Mhm.
and since I've been an adult, I've been able to make some connections with some of those people that I was friends with before then.
Mhm.
Actually, coincidentally, one of them happens to live in North Carolina now, so I've been able to touch base with him.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, and at Southern Poly, I graduated in 2011, and as many know, around that time, we were still kind of in a recession.
Mhm.
And there were two factors that made me decide, well, geotechnical engineering isn't for me. The first were the classes. I kind of learned that a lot of the things that you learn about geotechnical engineering, it's a lot of just assumptions and factors of safety, things that aren't as definitive. Like, for engineering, I like something that's very straightforward, by the
Mhm.
book. This is how you do it. It's not relying on a whole bunch of just factors and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The second was, um, with the recession, you have to kind of look at what opportunities are out there. And the field I'm in now with highway engineering, it's pretty recession proof. I mean, you're always going to need roads to get to point A to point B. I mean, whether you're just living at home and you're trying to drive to work, or if you're a trucker trying to get your delivery to the next location, Amazon is a
Mhm.
big thing. I mean, you got to have transportation. So
Right.
that's kind of the route I decided to go. And when I was in my senior year, the job prospects weren't looking too great.
Mhm.
I actually had planned on just staying in school longer, getting my master's. So I had gotten into Clemson for doctorate in transportation planning, Auburn for master's in civil
Mhm.
engineering. But one college professor I had, who happened to also work at Georgia DOT during the daytime, so he was an evening professor teaching my fundamentals of engineering prep class. He's like, "Don't be dumb. Go right into the workforce. It's not going to be worth it." And he put me into contact with some engineers, because in that class, he would actually bring some of the consultant engineers that he worked with on projects. He would bring them in and they would talk.
Mhm.
So he put me into contact with them. I interviewed and I got the job right out of school. So,
Nice.
in that respect, I was very fortunate, because initially I was looking maybe to get out of school early, but who knows? I may have not even been in transportation engineering. It might have gone a completely different route. A lot of people in that time, they went into something completely different. than what
Right.
their degree is in. So,
Gotcha.
um, so from there, I I worked at a company called Gresham Smith from 2011 to 2015.
Mm.
And so they're in Alpharetta, Georgia. And the wife and I bought our first house in 2012, and we lived in Snellville. So, for those that may not be familiar with Atlanta geography, it's about 30 miles if you take out like going up 285 and that kind of thing, just surface streets. But
Mm.
it's basically a 2 hour drive if
Oh,
you know what land traffic is. It's not good. So I did that commute for about 3 years, and at the time I had a scooter, so like kind of like a motorcycle scooter,
mm.
like a little Vespa.
Right.
And it took me, and my wife was with me because she actually had her job in Alpharetta too,
Mm.
and we were driving back from work, and it was taking 2 hours. And I think it was a hot June,
Mm.
and it was like 9 degrees, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is hot.
Yeah.
And it was just eating up a lot of my time. So we then at that point I ended up working for a firm in Duluth, Georgia for several years.
Mm.
So um, and in that time, even at my first job, I made a lot of great connections. And the one thing I will stress with with whatever field you're in, you want to make sure that you keep your connections, because you never know when that connection is going to come through for you
Right.
years or even decades down the road. So, one of my major supervisors out of that first job, Scott, he'll come back into the picture later on.
Gotcha.
Working for company Keckenwood, it was great time there. It was different from going from a mid-sized engineering firm
Mm.
of like six at the time. It was like 600 people to going to a 40-person company. So there are many trade-offs to that. Um, to going to a smaller firm, you have more autonomy there, or
Yeah.
you have more control. You have more control over things,
Right.
and you get to wear more hats. So, I mean, there are good sides and bad sides to that. I mean, you get to be more involved with projects. And the thing that I liked there was I was able to kind of take a project from cradle to grave. So, start a project early on, right? Pre-concept, or like when you just win the project, and
Yeah.
within a year or two get it all the way to construction, and actually be the person out there on the site seeing the project built.
Yeah.
And one such project was a bike path in Hateville that I got to see taken all the way to the end. Because with a lot of these transportation projects, like say a traditional Georgia DOT widening project, it can take years and years and years. And like one project I worked on that's now under construction,
Mm.
it started in 1999. Back when I was watching Cartoon Network and Toonami and that kind of thing. I mean, it's crazy how long some of these projects take, but I mean, there's a lot involved. I mean, you have environmental permitting. You have to make sure that if you're putting a new road somewhere, that you're not going to displace a certain community or impact a certain species. So you
Mm.
got to be very cognizant of that. But just the amount of time it takes, like it's like, man, it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
But um,
I guess is that what one of the main factors why roadway construction takes so long, just like all the permits and things and considerations you have to make.
exactly. So one major factor is where the funding comes from. So
Mm.
say you have a federal project, you have you have a lot more steps in order to get that federal funding. So like making sure that, I mean, depending on the level, so you could have environmental impact statement. You might be able to get away with a smaller environmental assessment where the state really has more control. But if you're doing a local project, like with
Mm.
local streets, and they have their own money, they can get projects done pretty quick.
Gotcha.
I mean, not as quick as like subdivisions going up, because those go up like crazy, and that's kind of what's happening around where I live now. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Um, but yeah, so I was at Keckenwood for 5 years. So, and around 2017, 2018, like I'd said earlier, I had kind of a transient life.
Mhm.
So like I've lived different places. So really nothing was personally tying me to Georgia. Except I had a little bit of family in Atlanta, and
Right.
most of my family is still in South Carolina, um, and that's where my younger sister ended up going back to live in South Carolina. But my wife, she was someone that was born and raised in Atlanta, and
Mhm.
all of her family was there, and she kind of wanted to change the scenery.
Mhm.
And she had a friend that lived in Denver at the time, and she went and visited her and fell in love with the area. So she kind of put in the back of my eyes, like, "Hey, we should consider Denver." I'm like, "Well, I have nothing tying me down,
Yeah.
so we'll keep a track on it. We'll kind of look at our property and we'll sell eventually."
Yeah.
Well, fast forward to February 2020, and I'm looking around at opportunities. Just kind of, I'm always on the periphery. I was kind of looking, and I'm like looking at the value of our property. I'm like, I think it's time to make the move. So then I start making some calls
Mhm.
and had an interview for a company out in Denver. And I go back and ask my former supervisor, Scott, "Hey, can you give me a reference? Can you be a reference for one of these opportunities that
Mhm.
I'm going to be interviewing for?" Now he had moved to a different company, and he's like, "Hey, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me talk to my counterparts at the company I'm at now in Denver."
Yeah.
So I end up having a second interview with them
Mhm.
while I'm talking to another company. And next thing I know, I get an offer to relocate to Denver.
Mhm.
1 week later, though, we have COVID.
Yeah.
So then the world completely changes for everyone. So at that time, I was 100% like working in an office. I was like training younger staff.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like I was used to a commute.
Yeah.
Well, now like, just like many other people, their lives were completely changed with COVID. Like, so, um, it made the whole moving cross country very very different than like I would have expected. So
Mhm.
um, I we placed our house in the market,
Yeah.
and somehow in 10 days we were able to get under contract. So it's like, well, shoot,
Yeah.
I need to get some housing out in Colorado now. Well, as you know, with the start of COVID and no vaccine, you couldn't get on a plane.
Mhm.
So as soon as we got our contract, I had to drive the 1,400 miles to Denver, get a house for rent,
Yeah.
and then drive back. So, so at the end of April of 2020, so with under 2 months, when we started the process of, hey, let's move to Denver,
Mhm.
and we have world pandemic, we're now across the country.
Yeah.
And the fact that the thing that's funny about it all was, well, yeah, I work for a new company in Denver, but
Mhm.
no one can go into an office. So I'm just working behind a screen,
Yeah.
and everyone else was. And I end up doing a lot of work for my counterparts out of the Atlanta office because I'm very familiar with Georgia DOT work. So
Mhm.
um, that's why I ended up doing there for a long time. So I ended up working on some Colorado DOT projects, and you can probably see, like, for those that are watching the podcast on YouTube or other video supported platforms, I have a couple of highway signs behind me. And one of those was a project I worked on in Colorado Highway 69. So 11-mile overlay project. And then you also can see US Highway 78 and Georgia Highway 124 signs. That
Mhm.
was probably one of my favorite projects I worked on early on in my career, is a little intersection in Snellville, which happened to be a town I lived in. So
Nice.
like I like to collect signs of places that I've been. But yeah, Colorado was it was a good experience, but I mean, over time there were things that just didn't feel quite as at home with us. one thing, it was hard to really make friends out in Denver because I mean everyone was kind of in shutdown time. So
Right.
the biggest outlet we had to that was when things started to open up a little bit was what they called brewery boot camp.
Mm.
So this kind of ties into what I mentioned at the beginning with the CrossFit. So the focus of this group was it was a CrossFit group. They would bring all the equipment to breweries on rotation. So like every Saturday and Sunday, and sometimes even Mondays, they would go to different breweries in the Denver metro area,
Mm.
and you would earn your beer. So you would have a 1 hour workout with your kettlebells and your dumbbells and that kind of thing, and then you'd usually get a buy one get one free pint. So I was earning my beer for sure.
Yeah.
And then the
It's
other
pretty
thing on
good
top of that,
motivation.
oh yeah, absolutely. And the other thing on top of that was when I was with Keckenwood, I ran my first ever 5K in 2015,
Mm.
and the company had paid for that. Like a lot of the employees were running it, so I was like, "Oh, I'll give it a try." Well, 10 years later, I'm still running races, and so that was one big change with Denver was elevation. So around Georgia, we were at elevation 1,000. In
Mhm.
Denver, by default, you're at 5,280 feet. So
Mm.
there's a lot of adjustments there. So at that at the time I moved to Denver, I had done 3 full marathons, and I can't even count the number of halves. But the mileage definitely went down in Denver because, yeah, the altitude is really handicap on that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so through the brewery boot camps, we made a few friends out there. But the thing that really got us to move back out east was around 2022. There were some wildfires that were in the northwest part of Denver.
Mm.
Um, so it was about 30 miles from where we were. We were in the town we lived in was Commerce City. So
Mm.
if anyone's ever been to the Denver International Airport, we're about 15-minute drive from the airport directly north. So
Oh, nice.
I'm going outside one afternoon to grab us some afternoon coffees from the coffee shop down the street, and I'm looking outside. It's like, oh, it's like it's like ashes out here. It's like it smells like an ashtray.
Mm.
And I tell Melissa, hey, come out here. And she totally flipped. Like we turn on the news and there's a big wildfire in Lafayette, Colorado. And it's like, okay, I'm done with this. That's what Melissa's like because she's grown up in Georgia. She's like seen the flooding, tornadoes, and all that, and
Yeah.
had some of the effects of hurricanes. I mean, me being from Charleston, I remember as a kid with hurricanes and kind of bunkering down that kind of thing. But wildfires, nope.
Yeah.
So it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. So at that point in 2022, we decided, well, we want to move back out east.
Mm.
But we don't want to move back to Atlanta. We don't miss that traffic. It's
Mm.
and Melissa's like, oh, I don't want to be like right next to family again. So my bright idea, since I it was my idea this time, it's like, oh well, let's try out West Virginia.
Mm.
It's I mean John Denver relating to Colorado. He
Yeah.
had a very good song about West Virginia being scenic. So it's like it's a lot cheaper out there compared to Denver. Denver wasn't cheap.
Mm.
We made it work. So let's move out to the Eastern Panhandle. So that's what we did. So we sold our house in Denver. We lived in West Virginia for a little while, but just wasn't cutting it. Just there weren't enough amenities for us. We were about, I mean, we were kind of in the most developed part. We
Yeah.
were in a town called Martinsburg. So right at the Eastern Panhandle is about an hour and a half from DC.
Mhm.
And at that point, it's like, well, we're renting here. We're not like tied down because we just wanted to test out the area, make sure it worked. So
Yeah.
we decided to move to North Carolina. So that's how we ended up in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. So now we're in a
Gotcha.
town in Mebane. So
Nice.
that area, it's really kind of checks off all the boxes. It's not too far from the mountains that we had in Denver. We're just a couple hours from the beach. Like I grew up around in Charleston.
Mm.
Um, so and this is where we intend to stay long term. I think we're done with the moving thing. It's too much of an inconvenience, and um, it's like it's too much of a hassle.
Yeah, I definitely can get with that because it's coming out of school, which was funny, like meeting you at the time and being able to go through Southern Poly. It's like I'll always cherish those moments because it's like you were saying, getting to go to school, you're studying engineering and you're learning from people that are doing it practically. And then also like coming out of there to say, let me go ahead and get into the field, like the work field, and figure out like, is what I'm learning on paper actually make sense in the real world? And even you getting a chance to like do that internship early on, is that something you kept doing through college?
Yes, so I was with Sailors Engineering all the way through college, and my last day with them was essentially right up to when I got that first job. So
Nice.
and I still have connections at that firm
Mm,
that I still have to this day.
gotcha.
Man, I am ever grateful that I had that opportunity because who knows, I may have not have gone into civil engineering. The other factor that kind of leaned me towards highway engineering
Mhm.
was the fact that I like road tripping. I,
Mm,
I like to travel the country, and one of those big factors is driving along all these highways. The trade-off to that, though, is you can't escape your job. No matter what road you're going down, it's like, oh, I see these traffic cones. And then
mm,
I start thinking of like whenever I see a highway sign, it's like, oh, that's an R1-1 sign. Or that's a D series guide sign. Just you can't
yeah,
escape work.
yeah.
Whereas my wife, she's a graphic designer for a digital signage firm. So like she goes in a hotel or a restaurant and she
Mm,
sees like all the wayfinding signs, that kind of thing. She can't escape her job there,
gotcha.
but she can just not go inside those buildings and she's fine. Whereas, I mean, I just go outside. There's a street there.
Yeah,
It's like can't escape it at all. But
yeah.
but I've been in the industry 14 years and it's been rewarding. Um, it's really making a difference out there, and just like you may not see it like on social media, like folks always complain about, hey, what is this roundabout? Like we don't want no roundabouts.
Right, right.
When people come around to actually try them out, they can kind of see how like those things can be more efficient. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the types of intersections that are designed, and
Yeah.
a lot of the projects that we work on are relating to maintenance. So uh, my main background is in bridge replacements.
Mm,
So a lot of the projects involve bridges that are being replaced in kind. So like a two-lane road
yeah.
bridge was built in the 1950s or 1960s, and bridges typically have a lifespan of about 50, 60 years. So we have a lot of those bridges that are coming due now.
Yeah.
And the interstate system, it was started in 1956. Now, the whole interstate system wasn't built in its entirety in the 1950s, but a lot of sections were like predominantly built in the 60s.
Right.
And if it was an area where there wasn't frequent widenings that took place, like I-285 in Atlanta,
Mhm.
um, you have bridges that are coming due for replacement. So those we have those kind of projects that I've worked on.
Gotcha.
Some of the projects I worked on are up in Northeast Georgia.
Mm,
So you have a lot of the Army Corps of Engineer reservoirs like Lake Lanier.
yeah.
A lot of those bridges were built in the mid 50s and they are coming due for replacement. So I've had the
Gotcha.
opportunity to work on those kind of projects. And when you have those kinds of projects, you have a lot of different disciplines that are involved. So my part is strictly on the roadway design aspect. So like your horizontal and vertical alignments of how this is going to tie in, and like the construction phasing. So say this is the point of when I'm going to shift traffic from one side to another in order to
Mhm.
build this part of the roadway or
Right.
this bridge approach. You got to make sure that gels with the drainage design because they determine as well, can do we have enough inlets to capture all the water from a rain event to
Mm,
make sure that we don't have any type of flooding, or or we have enough standing water where someone will hydroplane,
Right.
and then making sure it also will work with structures because, say, you go over Lake Lanier
Mhm.
and you have over 100 feet of elevation between the top of the bridge deck and where that pier goes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into staging those types of projects. And with a project like a bridge going over Lake Lanier, then you have to also coordinate um, the construction of those piers, and you have to deal with boat traffic. So
Mhm.
there's kind of a lot that goes into the coordination of different disciplines, and then also going back to environmental.
Mhm.
So I mean, you have fish species or plant species that are on the embankments that you have to be mindful of for clearing.
Mhm.
So it's very involved when it gets into that, but I wouldn't trade being in the field I'm in for anything.
Gotcha. Do you get to spend a lot of time in the field versus being in the office? Like you were saying, being able to work a project cradle to grave, like being behind
So
a computer versus like being out there with the laborers and things like
yeah,
that.
so really, I have personally not been in the field too much per se, especially being a remote employee
Mhm.
because I work for the company I worked for in Denver. I work for them remotely out of North Carolina, but
Gotcha.
I work on strictly Georgia DOT projects. I may expand in the future to North Carolina DOT projects, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it,
Gotcha. Right. Right.
unintended. Um, but really, with technology now, like with Google Maps and getting very good field survey,
Mhm.
it's not necessary to go into the field constantly.
Yeah.
I will in the next month be going to a few of the project sites I've been working on to just see the progress of those projects. So prior to them going to construction. So like we have one project roundabout in central Georgia
Mhm.
that is kind of at the 60% design phase.
Mhm.
So we're just going to make sure that practically everything kind of gels with those plans versus what is actually in the field. Because yeah, you can have survey, you can have Google Maps, but things change frequently. And especially if you have a project that has gone on for years and years,
Mhm.
the one thing that no one ever tells you is that, hey, a coffee shop may be built here on this intersection now, or we might have a gas station at this corner now.
Yeah.
And when you start adding in those kinds of things, it can change how the whole intersection works with accesses and that kind of thing. So,
Right.
yeah.
That makes sense. I guess like one of the things I really appreciated about civil engineering and being in this discipline about the same amount of time and just seeing where, especially for bigger projects, things come into play. One of the things I was getting to earlier was like you were saying, having to move around, or at least for me, choosing to move around initially with work. I remember reaching out to you where I was like, just got into a construction job in the nuclear industry where it seemed like your hair was on fire as soon as you walked in. But I think a piece of advice you gave me was to make sure to stick it out at least the first 2 years, where it's like you want to at least establish a good base to where you're known as someone that's reliable. And then seeing from the perspective of like what's going on holistically, where you've got the different disciplines tying into each other. I just always find it cool to be like, okay, I only took one transportation class, but at least going through the exercise of like understanding how an intersection comes together or what the different types of turns are or how they work, or at least paying attention to reading the roadway signs. It's like, hey, someone put some thought into this to where it's like you don't just come blasting through here and then being like, where am I going? Where am I going? It's like, no, Google Maps works well, Apple Maps, all that type of thing. It's like it's this constantly evolving system that just like it feels like it's invisible, but at the same time, it's like you have people in the background that are constantly making the things like you see the buildings being built and then like the bridges are coming together, the roadways are being put there, and it's like all the while the ecosystem still exists. And like that's why you have greenery in some places, and like you have I think it's like Lake Altoona or the Chattahoochee just north of Atlanta that it's man-made, but at least it's something that people rely on, go to during the summertime, and they're like, "Oh wow, we can enjoy this. Let's go shoot the hooch, or let's let's try to do something to beat the heat." But all the while, it's like nobody likes traffic, but at least the ways that we've been able to circumvent it with all the amount of people that are just in the area, it's like, wow, this road sees millions of people on a daily, weekly basis, and that's just crazy to think of.
Exactly. And that term that kind of corresponds to what you're saying there is what we would call context sensitive design, where you're trying to take in consideration the built environment with how citizens will interact with that environment, like with bike trails, parks and rec, and how that ties in with the commuter roads that everyone uses to go from to work to play
Mm,
back home every day.
much,
So, and then going back to your earlier point, yeah, I highly recommend that if there's anyone that is coming right out of school and you're going into whatever career or industry that you're going out right out of school, stick it out for 2 years minimum. That is enough time to be able to at least get your foot in the door and build connections. And this it is really a critical time. And I will tell you from firsthand experience, yeah, I was an AB student in college. I felt like a total idiot my first 9 months. I
mm,
was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I was not someone that really was that great at using AutoCAD while I
mhm,
was in college. And the one thing that if you're in the transportation industry specifically, is if you're doing state DOT work, it's typically Bentley MicroStation. It's not Autodesk products.
yeah,
And there were no classes in AutoCAD in MicroStation at Southern Poly, and a lot of colleges really don't teach. I think maybe a
right,
few do, but um, when it came to a lot of team projects when I was at Southern Poly, I was the guy that was really good at writing the reports. I had other folks that did internships at other transportation firms that were really good at the CAD. So I just let them do that.
right,
So it was kind of a rude awakening when I got in. It's like, well, you're going to help draw this roundabout as my first project. It was a little overwhelming. And I've known some people that over my 14-year career, they come into the industry and they are there a couple months.
mhm,
And one guy just he quiet quit on us. Like he was, I think this was 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years ago,
mhm,
and he was right out of school and just totally just decided, "Oh, I'm not doing this anymore." I mean, I felt that way early on in my career, but you have to give it a shot. I mean,
yeah,
you got to give it all. And I mean, if I didn't stick it out, I wouldn't be where I am now. Being able to move several times across the country and see a lot of this beautiful country and um, have the life I have now and build many connections because a lot of those connections from my first job, they've come through for me later on down the line. And even when I met people in my industry in Denver, they
mm,
had personal connections with people out in Atlanta. Like one of those people that worked out of the Denver office, they worked for a company across the street from the company I worked for in Duluth, Georgia.
yeah,
So it really is a small world, and it also kind of ties in with how small the transportation engineering industry really is. Like there
right,
really is a shortage of engineers. So
yeah,
I mean, it's really important to kind of go into the trades. We don't have enough of those people, but
mhm,
it's not the case with transportation or any type of civil engineering to where it's flooded. It is not. There are
right,
plenty of opportunities. And a lot of the people that are currently in the industry, they're going to be retiring in the next 10 years.
yeah,
I've known several that have worked under. They have stepped into the sunset and you really can't get a hold of them anymore because they're enjoying their retirement. So um, really like anyone that's kind of in that 10 to 15 year group, there are not many of them because they were knocked out by the recession. So
yeah,
they have a lot of folks that are in that 5 to 10 year range. They're having to step up. So that's why I say to anyone that's 0 to 2 years, stick it through. You'll come through. I did.
yeah.
You will too.
And especially to that point, I feel like it's not something that's forever because it's almost like going to school where once you've kind of gone through it, you still have the credentials and like being able to see other opportunities is like you may not have to do like a job more than 40 hours. So it's like you still kind of bank your personal time to the side to where it's like if you want to do the activities that you're interested in, whether it's podcasting, CrossFit, brewery making, and different things like that. To your point, it's like making those connection really helps to broaden your horizons to where you may go into school someone that's like maybe more shy, more reserved, but then you get to explore options or like do a little bit of a taste test with like, okay, I've never done this before. You meet someone that sits next to you and it's like, oh, they're into this. Let me check that out. And then obviously you meet people that you have similar interests with. So then it's like nice to where you have your own ecosystem where like people care about the things that you care about and then you have those as like shared interests.
Oh, exactly. And even when I was doing the brewery boot camp out in Colorado, coincidentally, a couple of kind of people that I met out there were in the engineering industry, not
Mm.
civil engineering, but
Right.
of all things, they were in aeronautical engineering. So, one thing I can say is it not correlation doesn't equal causation all the time, but it
Right.
seems like a lot of engineers do like good quality craft beer. So,
Mm.
at least I will say for some of my civil engineering and other engineering brethren, we have good taste in beer. So
Yeah,
that's always a good thing. So
I can attest to that. And so what's this year been like for you and what does it look like as it's kind of winding down at this point?
it's actually been a pretty calm year. I mean, um, this area that I'm living in right now, it's blowing up. The town of Mebane, it's about 20,000 people.
Mhm.
It's right off of Interstate 85 and 40.
Mm.
So just between Greensboro and Raleigh.
Okay.
So where we're at, they're actually going to be putting the first Buc-ee's in the state of North Carolina. So that's going to bring a lot of opportunities for folks that are looking for jobs,
Yeah.
and it's also going to bring a lot of revenue to our city. But the downside to that is we're getting a lot more development.
Yeah.
So across from where our subdivision is, they're putting in 140 apartment units on a 14-acre lot, and then we also have 600 houses and townhomes going in behind us. So um, it's one of two things: either you're going to grow or you're going to stagnate.
Mhm.
And one thing that I like to do when I go on my road trips is when I like to see the country, I just kind of want to get perspectives of how other folks live because, yeah, it's nice to stay in your little bubble of like things are growing, you got plenty of shops and dining and all that. But um, yeah, you go out to rural West Virginia and all you see are is a Dollar General and maybe an Ingles or
Yeah.
something, and the only thing that's pristine in the town is a single church,
Mm.
and everything else is run down. Or like when I've gone to New Mexico, it's just seeing a whole bunch of mobile homes and a few fast food joints. I mean,
Yeah.
it gives you perspective on being fortunate for what you have, and I don't take that for granted at all, considering the background I came from. It was I never forget that time prior to 2005 or where I was, and I am always grateful for where I am now with my wife and having the opportunity to meet folks like you and my other colleagues when I was at Southern Poly.
That's awesome, man. Just sharing your story with me today I learned a lot that I didn't know because it's like when we were going to school, all I was really focused on was like, hey, get a good grade. But then it's like even being able to hang out a little bit, it's like it's tight knit enough to where you really do build those. But then in getting a chance to do this, I really appreciate you really going in depth and laying out a timeline of just being like, okay, well, here's where I started, maybe some of the bad, but then it got better with an opportunity. And then here's what we've been able to make of it since then.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I always say, I went. when I'm like reviewing others' work, I am very, very stringent, and I can be kind of difficult on those, but my perspective is um, you got to be really good and passionate about what you do.
Mm.
And I think I'm really tough on work and making sure things are to perfection. Well, you never can have true perfection, but be better than just good enough for government work. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we literally are delivering government work, but I want to make sure it's something that I can sleep well at night too, and that's kind of what I live by. And
Mm.
I think I've gotten to a point in my life where I can sleep well at night, knowing that I've delivered good quality work, and that I've really moved past the darker times of my life. I mean, they're 2 decades behind me now, and
Yeah.
definitely glad I'm past those. But just ever grateful where I am now.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Brian. It was good catching up, and I hope to do this again, even if not on the podcast, but offline for sure.
Yeah,
I think I have
absolutely.
plans to maybe go up to your area and kind of see how things are up that way.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. This has been my time, I guess. That's the way to say it. So, everyone, make sure that you tune in and keep track of Asher's next episode. So, thanks, everyone. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.